Okay, so let's think about this for a second.
Okay.
Just, taking this as the core thing. I have two questions, one of which, this one might be like instantly easily dismissed. Oh, that's no big deal, right? Or it may be a moment of, I don't know, maybe one of those moments. We'll see. And it is, do you have anything else that is tracked on a chart with qualitative meaning like that?
In as far as like, about your character or in the game in general? No.
Okay, go on.
That would be probably the only thing, kind of like in Hellas or in Atlantis, where you had a fate track.
Right.
And once like you hit 10 on the fate track, your character gets taken.
That's true, except that you do have other things to track in Hellas and Atlantis. You have the glory thing, and you've got your elements thing. That's what I'm talking about. I want to see how many of these little tracks I'm like monitoring.
And Godsend Agenda, probably just your glory or renown. And that's the only thing I can think of. It's just that is the one thing that you are keeping an active tally on as your character progresses. And probably like your agendas. That would probably be the other thing.
Right. You can see what I'm arguing for here, or at least raising for consideration, that in this case, less is more. And in some ways, I got to thinking, after I edited that first session, I got to thinking a lot. And I found myself hating the 90s. Hating the concept of we need to have this many different factions and groups because we need a splat book for each one of them. And we need to build our IP, right? We need to have a lot here so that when we lands the movie contract, that when we get the Saturday morning cartoon going, then there's going to be all these things to do. And I'm trying to get away from that. I'm trying to get away from it and say, let's instead say, what is the core of what is, we talked about this, I guess. What is the core of what makes this exciting to play? And I'm thinking especially that if we have only one or at most two of these things to track, and actually, you see, the trouble with the agendas is that you have multiple agendas, so that's actually a whole bunch of them, right? So the thing is, I'm trying to say, let's think about what changes on the sheet. What changes on the sheet is the agendas and completing them. Is it fun just to see them go up, or is it fun to complete them? And if it's fun to complete them, and you only get 1 or 2 points per adventure with this thing, you're never going to complete. I mean, you got to make 10 points.
Right.
Or rather 9, right? But that's what? That's 9 more adventures, or at least 5.
Right, if you do awesome, yes.
Right. And that is the the metric, and that's just for one agenda, one group rather.
Right.
Isn't that a little like slow? I mean, the idea being is we want to see these agendas like boom. Granted, with some, they have to have a causal sequence of events. I get that.
Right.
But the notion that if this is something that's supposed to change, let's see it change, not just track it, incrementally increasing in one day change.
Right.
So there are extreme forms of this, which are actually a little too sort of premature ejaculation, if you ask me. Right? I mean, they are too. Oh, we want to do it, and bam, we did it, and we turn it over, and turn it in and get the points for it, and okay, now next, right? That's not that fun either. So I'm thinking in terms of, okay, now you got your character, you've got these agendas to look at. Is glory a thing? Does glory give me bonuses, right? You actually use glory in some way, is that right?
Yeah, the renown is basically your experience points.
Right.
Right. The more glory you have, you get more hero points for it. You get your renown gives you social bonuses.
Right.
And eventually you start getting your followers, right. which are, like your Buckaroo Banzai auxiliaries or something like that. People, right. Not necessarily just a codified group, but people who believe in you.
I totally get that. Right. So we've got that going on, and then you've got the agendas. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, and you've got all these agendas that you've got your points going on.
Yes.
And what I'm suggesting is the purest or the most basic form of this would say, all right, you've got your hero points that come out of this too. I guess I'm trying to keep the characters from being too safe, too buffered.
Okay.
There's the problem with the whole hero point thing for all of these games is that they tend to level out failures, mitigate the failures, and kind of keep everything sweet for the player character, unless they burn up fast, unless they become really a limited resource. And remember our experience with DC Heroes,
mm-hmm.
right? Which is that as soon as all those hero points become plentiful, then the dice rolling is pretty much irrelevant, and you're just seeing how many handfuls of hero points you're going to throw into it this time.
Right.
So so I guess I'm trying to make the dice matter, right? The resolution dice matter in this context.
Okay. So, and this is in the context of agendas, or just in the context of the gameplay as it spans
I was trying to stay focused on agendas, but it's too integrated with all the other things in this case. So
right. Let's say it is. And then because there's the antagonist pool, which the GM has. So it's basically like his pool of hero points that he can use.
Right.
That he can just throw them at players. And, the more powerful they are, kind of the more the more hero points that he gets. So like you can have a standard like thug, but if my antagonist pool is high enough, I can just say, well, he uses 5 hero points and does this. And you're like, wow, this thug,
thug pulled it off. Right. That one guy. Right.
The way like sometimes.
Sometimes they do. The one guy managed, the one no-name guy does the thing. Yeah.
Or just when you're fighting like, your main villain.
Right.
Because points in this game, they scale. So if you're power level 3, they provide a +3 bonus. If you're power level 5, they provide a +5 bonus.
Right.
So if you're fighting like a power level 5 villain or ability level 5 villain, their hero points spend when they hit you with something, it's gonna be monumental compared to like. So
I get that. It's a nice way to scale effect in the game. That's for sure. And that way you have a little less. You have to account a little less for that shit with your basic resolution and modeling system. So that's good. But
understanding, you want to be able to, I guess, antagonize the player characters more. You want to task them more with the system. You want them to fucking hurt and to feel pain and feel that slog as they're getting through stuff.
Right. Well, that's what I'm kind of interested in, because if they're going through this and here's my next thing. Let's add into it what I said before, the institutions that are either real world or stand-ins for real world stuff. And they're not agendas, they're just like they're corporations, or they're nations or governments, or they're criminal organizations, or they're something, right?
Right.
And now we talked about how you would actually fight them as if they were a foe. You actually would do damage to the American Enterprise Institute if you can.
Right.
So here's the trickiest question of all. I remember I said 2 basically. The trickiest question of all is, why should I care about some stupid Elohim when I've got the American Enterprise Institute to go tackle? I mean, in other words, why are these made up groups important in the fiction at all when we have shit like this already here in the real world, and they've got scores and values and attributes and agency through their abilities in the game.
Right.
So it's like we already have monsters. We already have villains. We already have conspiracies. Shit, you don't need to make up a Ken Hite, Illuminati conspiracy. Right. I mean, we've got the real fucking thing right here, in the real world with a small c, and that makes it worse.
Right.
So, right.
Right.
And so,
no, I see what you're saying. Yes.
So that's sort of an interesting thing. One thing I was sort of wondering about when I read that document and we came up with this combination, I loved all that stuff about the sentient storm and the ancient Egypt stuff, the New Kingdom, if I'm not mistaken, and all the stuff, and I love the color of a group like Gen X or the colorful stuff about them. But my agendas, are they really about those guys, or are they about institutions that I want to? I mean, remember, this is about change. We talked about how this is changing the world. I'm not going to change the world by taking down, whoever it was, the power elite.
Right.
I'm going to change the world by taking down the United States institution, the OAS, which was just in the real world responsible for the toppling of the socialist government in Bolivia just a few years ago.
Right.
And Bolivia has been a nightmare ever since. So if I'm going to have an agenda, I'm going to want to go after them.
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not seeing how the fantasy entities and organizations, the fantastic ones, I'm not seeing how they dovetail with me being, a new hero for our times who actually will become a mythic figure. If all I'm doing is battling a bunch of made-up nonsense when the CIA is sitting right there with scores and defense values and abilities and stuff. I want to go fight that dragon.
Right.
So that's kind of what don't you see that I feel like there's two role-playing games here. One is, against the antagonists with a bunch of, snake-headed, ancient people or a bunch of bug aliens or something. And then we've got these other entities. Now, I'm all about the colorful fun of each of those things.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is, isn't there some way to collapse the fantastic conspiracies and history that you've got into the modern day institutions? You're not going to be able to take on the power elite unless you actually are battling these institutions. They're not a cause. They're a symptom. They're a weapon. They may be a dangerous one. They may have ideas of their own. It may not be safe for, the State Department or whoever, right? The Bolsonaro administration in Brazil. It may not be safe for them to be using the power elite the way they are, but they are doing it. And it's that organization. Taking out the power elite isn't going to change the world.
Right.
Taking out the Bolsonaro government absolutely will.